I'm sitting down for a different kind of video today.
Uh-oh.
Where we're going in raw.
Uh-oh. Oh.
It's just going to be me talking to you because I'm really frustrated about where we are in gaming and particularly gaming discourse. And
Yep.
I'm frustrated at how difficult it's become to just talk about video games. Something that I'm really...
Yeah, I think that's true. It's become increasingly more difficult to do that because people have so much of an agenda behind what games are doing. Like Dragon Age the Veilguard is a great example. Like, people want the game to fail or succeed for reasons that have nothing to do with the game. And all of that noise is completely overshadowing any genuine conversation about whether the game is good or not.
Passionate about, and something that I know a lot of you are really passionate about, and I enjoy talking about my passion, and I'm sure most of you do too. And there's a lot of bullshit that's happening with video games right now. There's a lot of activists getting into the industry.
True.
And I think the reason for that is because the industry is it's so popular, and with that popularity comes attention, and with that attention comes power and opportunity for propaganda and to, you know,
I think
spread
that's
your
true.
message and all this other bullshit. You know what I'm talking about, and I know what I'm talking about. And so you've seen a lot of people, a lot of us, stand up and call it out. Stand up and say, hey, like, why are you shoving this, like, social activism? Why are you shoving your personal politics? Why are you shoving your morality and your censorship into, like, my video games? Like, this is...
Very good question. Extremely good question.
This is what I do to get away from the world. I play video games to get away from stress. And so when you see...
I think that's a really big component too. Like, what he's saying is that a lot of people play video games for escapism, and when video games turn into being a way that people get to express like their worldview like that, I think that the escapism is lost and it ends up hurting the game.
In your game where you're trying, it's escapism. And when you escape to the video game just to have somebody say, hey, how do you feel about pronouns?
Yeah.
Are you a bigot? When you have that kind of rhetoric and that kind of messaging, and when you have writers and characters in the game that are clearly propped up on soapboxes, it ruins the immersion. It
does. I'm going to be honest. He's right about everything that he's saying. And I think that he's saying it from the perspective of a person who's like just an average Joe. You know, this is like, I think, what a lot of average guys think.
Escapism. It takes you right out of the video game, and it sits you down right into like some Twitter brain rot discourse.
Of course.
That I think people are getting sick of. I think people
fundamentally don't like being told what to do. They don't like being ordered around, and they don't like having things dictated to them. And I think that at the end of the day, a lot of the people that try to push stuff like this are very bossy, they're very pushy, and they're extremely aggressive with how they want to communicate, and they tell people to act. And I think that if you just extrapolate it to like a very basic level where people don't want to be told what to do and what to think by a video game, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Getting sick of it. And I know that I am. And it was one thing years ago when I saw these kind of interactions and this kind of discourse around video games, and it was only online.
Yeah.
It was only on like Facebook, or it was
like
only on Twitter back in the day, but you didn't see it in real life. Like you just saw it on the internet, and you were like, what's wrong with these people, you know? But now it's gotten to the point where like it's in real life. Like half the time when I go to the GameStop in my town and I'm looking at games, if Assassin's Creed Shadows comes up, or the new Ghost of Tsushima having a female protagonist, like when this stuff comes up, or like we discuss these games like in a general way, if it comes up for any reason, now I always find myself in a situation where I'm having to discuss these topics with a person face to face, or it it's weaving its way into real conversations where I don't really want it. Like, I'll be honest.
Well, I think the reason why that happens is because nowadays there's so much of an emphasis being put on trying to get people to talk about these issues and putting them in your face. Like, and this is a big issue that I think a lot of people that are like social activists have, is that they think that the way that they can attract attention and favor to their cause is by being so obnoxious and aggressive about it that everybody has to take them seriously and listen to them and like pay attention to them. And I think a good example of that is like the Just Stop Oil stuff, where it's like people that are throwing like cans of food. Like, I remember there was like some Spanish like TV show, and it's a guy that just walks up to two of the people that like, you know, were doing that and just shoots them in the head and kills them. And all of the comments were spamming based, right? Everybody was like, yeah, thank God, you know, please do this in real life, right? Which is like clearly, I mean, not what you should do, but I think that it goes to show that people are just fed up with having people that want to take every single like platform and every single place that exists and turn it into a soapbox for their personal issue. And I think that that's what's really happened, is that these people have put themselves into these positions and they've changed the way that different media is portrayed. And then they want it to be in your face. They want it to be something that you have to directly interface with, because they think in doing so, they're, I don't know, helping and making the problem better. They don't want to debate these issues. They want to talk down to us. If we push back, then they immediately start the "you're a bigot" rhetoric. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also about like, they don't want to give you a place to breathe and relax because they think that their issues are so important that you have to always be thinking about them.
With you, like, I don't mind it, but
and this happens with politics too. Like, anybody in the US knows that nowadays, especially with like people, like, there's so much of an emphasis being put on this. Just change DEI and woke stuff for anything radical in messaging? Yeah, well, I think it's true. It's not even really about anything specific. It's just about radical forced messaging that isn't reflective of what the customer wants.
I grew up with this mentality that, like, when you go to the bar or when you go out, you know, just in public in general, you leave your politics at home. There's no...
I actually disagree with that. I don't think that there's a problem to have conversations about politics with people in public and people that you meet. I think that actually not being able to do that and the fact that people could treat it like a taboo subject is a bad thing. I like the idea that you can go and just say, you know what, like, what do you think about this? And just have like an honest, genuine like conversation about it. And I think the real problem isn't the fact that that's happening. It's the fact that people lack the emotional maturity to deal with a dissenting or a disagreeing person without completely losing all their marbles and acting like this person is like everything wrong with the world. Like, you can't have civil discourse when it's like, basically, it's like, oh, well, do you want to support, like making women, like forcing them to die by having babies? Or do you support genocide? Or do you support, like rapists or pedophiles? Like, it's just, the language is so emotionally elevated that, and it's because it's being dictated by people that are mentally ill, right? It's like, basically on the internet, there is like a huge contingency of people that are completely mentally ill, that are trying to create the rules for social engagement that have totally fucked up discourse everywhere. Because I don't think it's a problem to talk about politics with a person in public. I don't think it's a big deal at all. You just have a conversation, listen to what they're saying. They can listen to what you're saying. You can disagree or agree, and that's it. It's not that big of a deal. But for other people, they don't see it that way. And the reason why, it's because like they believe so strongly in these issues. It's that this issue means everything to them. And the reason why they're on the internet is because they've alienated everybody else in their real life by their intense fixation on this issue in a lot of cases.
No good.
That's why they're on the internet to begin with.
From dragging your politics and your activism or whatever into a social setting with a bunch of people that are really just trying to chill out, you know? It I think, like, pollutes the sense of community that you feel in public with people when that kind of shit gets brought in. So I grew up with that mentality that you just, you check that shit at the door and then you just enjoy your time with other people. I
think that it's fine to talk about it, but the problem is that when people think that other people have to have the same opinions that they do, and they get emotionally attached to that. That's when it becomes extremely toxic.
Seeing that line being erased, it feels like more and more in real life.
It's being completely erased, and it's being done on purpose. You see it all the time where people say things like everything is political now, everything is political. Everything is clearly not political. And like using different, using like some sort of, like, I don't know, like some sort of media as like a soapbox for your like fringe political issue. Like, this isn't normal. This isn't normal. People don't like to deal with this. If you're a Nazi supporter, you shouldn't be given a space to exist. Well, there's a lot of countries that agree with you for that. But in America, you can be a Nazi supporter and you can live and exist. That's freedom of speech. It's the First Amendment of the Constitution. So everybody can be stupid, and that's it. Like, just because, and this is like a Nazi, like, what do you mean by a Nazi? Like, do you mean somebody who doesn't like illegal immigration? Like, it's just all of these words and like all of this language. Like, you don't really believe this. Like, you're not actually willing to. This is the other issue that a lot of people have, is that they shouldn't be given a space to exist. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to like go and kick them out? Are you going to like beat them up? Of course you're not. You're just going to hope somebody else does it. It's obnoxious. It's so obnoxious.
And I see like this stuff coming up, and it's like these battle lines are starting to get drawn in real life. It's not just like brain rot on the internet anymore. It's affecting opportunities. I have people that won't work with me as a YouTuber or a streamer because of opinions that I have about Dragon Age the Veilguard. You know, because of a tweet I liked. About some bullshit with The Last of Us Part 2 or something. And I have people that genuinely are just like, it happens every time I put out a video.
Well, this is the problem with a lot of content creators, is that a lot of content creators are really afraid of getting canceled or losing their audience. So what they end up doing is they end up pretending to be a person that they're not in order to hopefully not lose that audience of people. That's what happens a lot. And so that's why you see like streamers that don't ban abusive people in chat. It's because they're worried about losing the viewer. And so like basically these people care more about like their public image, and like this is your job, right? If it's your job, you should do whatever you think is best for your career. But at the same time, like if you do that and you continue being like a version of yourself that doesn't really exist, I think that you do run into a lot of problems. It's self-censorship. Yeah, exactly.
On Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I'm sorry for like being so like emotional or whatever about this.
It's weird.
I've been feeling this way for a long time, and I've wanted
and I even had like my opinions on Dragon Age the Veilguard, like the game, as I said, I enjoyed it more than I expected that I would, and I intend to continue playing the game off stream. I don't think it's a great game. I think it's like a 6 out of 10. But I think that a lot of people expected me to completely shit on it like I did with Star Wars Outlaws, and I just didn't do that. And it actually got a lot of people angry at me. And they were mad that like they were like, oh, Asmon's gone woke now. Like he doesn't want to offend woke people because he's not, you know, shitting on this game as much as we think he should. I read a lot of comments like that about me. Now, obviously, like everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I don't delete any of those comments. Like if you want to post something like that, go ahead. But I don't really give a shit. But at the same time, it's kind of weird and annoying to read, for sure.
About it for a long time, and I don't have a
that's
script,
just how it is.
So if I bounce all over the place, I'm sorry, but I'm just so frustrated that we can't just talk about our video games. Every time I put out a video on Dragon Age the Veilguard, I have to deal with this. You know, I'm either not mean enough to the game or I'm not nice enough to the game. It's like...
Yeah, it's a culture war. It has nothing to do with the game at all. They don't care. Like, nobody cares about the game. People don't care about, like, is this game good or not? It has nothing to do with it. It's like, does this game cause me to gain ground or lose ground culturally? That's the only focus.
It's like the Super Bowl. It's like sports. It's like a competition, and it's two teams. Pick your side. Are you red or are you blue? Put your jersey on, and then you go to war, and all the new...
I really like the fact that, like, this guy... I mean, so this dude only has 500 subscribers. So the odds are, like, this is just your typical everyday guy who just makes YouTube videos for fun, right? It's not like this probably isn't like his career or anything like that. Might not be able to make enough money to do that. And he just does this for fun. And I'm so glad to hear this, because this is, I think, what an average Joe thinks. This is the way an average person looks at it. Yeah, he's so spot on. Yeah. And I think that what's good about it is that it's so authentic.
And all of like the real conversation that could lead to some sort of resolution gets thrown out the window. And then anybody who tries to bring the gray back into the spectrum of the conversation gets called a cuck or gets called a fence sitter or whatever. It's just never.
I wonder who that's happened to. Who could that have ever possibly happened to?
Never enough. You're either never left enough or you're never right enough, you know? If I say something negative about Dragon Age the Veilguard, even if I'm criticizing a game mechanic, somehow I'm like an alt-right grifter that hates.
As I've said before, we are in the midst of a profound mental health crisis in America. You might not realize it, but hopefully after enough of these videos and after enough time on social media, you'll realize that it's worse than you could ever imagine. It's bad.
LGBT, whatever.
Yeah.
And then if I praise the game, if I say I see some stuff I really like, maybe it could be good. Like maybe it could overcome some of the things I don't like. Maybe I could end up liking this game. Well, then all of a sudden I'm part of the
woke.
problem.
Yeah.
And I'm supporting the toxic activism in the community that's subverting the quality of the product that we're paying money for.
And I think that like really the focus about this is that if you take this a step back and you think about what is he really complaining about, he's complaining about the same thing that I've talked about how people are no longer encouraged and they're actually in fact actively discouraged to critically think about situations. Because if you critically think about situations, you end up in the middle of the road in a lot of cases. Or you don't have the same viewpoint that like whatever dogmatic group that you are a part of generally wants you to have. And so what happens is that somebody like this, he tries to critically think about the game and come to his own conclusions. And then his own conclusions are not sufficient for people that are radicalized. And because people that are radicalized are so loud, they basically dominate discourse. And what ends up happening is that every time that somebody wants to do that and they come up with their own opinion and then they get hate for it, do you know what that does? That tells them, stop thinking for yourself. And that is the fundamental problem that I think is pervasive through gaming. I think it's pervasive through all social issues. It's pervasive through politics. It's pervasive through science. It's pervasive through everything. And that has been the actual core problem. It's that people don't want to live with their mind in a cage. And modern social media and like just modern discourse requires you to have your mind in a cage.
It's just, I just feel like when I know that I'm not grifting and I know that I am only making this video or doing this reaction or talking about...
Most of the people that grift is one of the words that if I ever see this word, I assume that the person who's making the post is a retard. What does grifting mean? How is somebody a grifter? How do you define that they're a grifter? It's become one of those words that's used on people that are saying things that you disagree with. That's it. It's just the new word for basically lion Ted. It's the new buzzword.
Dragon Age because I genuinely care about it, and all I want to do is just have a discussion about it, the good, the bad, the things I like, the things I don't like, and then have conversations. That's what I miss about YouTube, man. Maybe I'm wrong, you know, because I wasn't really heavy on YouTube until about like 8 years ago. But I feel like there was a time when somebody would post a video and it would like provoke conversation, and then when you would go into the comments, you would see people having conversations about the topic, and it would be interesting to read. And now that's
I think that it's gone down and it's gotten worse, but the truth is that this has always been a problem on the internet, and now I think there's more of a microscope being put on it, but it's been an issue for quite a while.
fucking gone. We're losing it. And I feel like that was a really important part of YouTube, and I feel like we're fucking losing it. When I see Luke Stevens or Asmongold or anybody post a video about, you know, a video game, anything, the least controversial topic, it doesn't matter. You go down there and it's just the comments are just bots, and then like just the most toxic. It's Twitter now. The YouTube comments are looking more and more like Twitter. It's OnlyFans promotion and bots, and then just the most toxic, brain dead fucking people, and then the worst opinions a lot of the time, not all the time. Maybe
Well, think about it like this. Which opinion is the most accessible? It's the dumbest opinion, right? Because that's the one that most people can understand. So what happens is that the dumbest opinions are the ones that get pushed the most, because those are the opinions that everybody can understand. Lowest common denominator.
Really focusing on the negative, but a lot of the time it's like the most brain dead ass comments get liked or upvoted or whatever the most, and it just makes me feel fucking insane. Now that's probably because normal people, they don't really comment that much on YouTube videos. They might like
most of the people that are commenting on YouTube videos. Actually, I think YouTube comments can be okay, but some of them definitely, like, especially like these serial commenters that are like writing big long posts, like these are people who have gone hollow. These are the lost souls in the undead asylum at the beginning of Dark Souls 1.
They might give it a like or a dislike, they move on, and then as a creator, I get the analytics, I see the retention, and then I can get an idea of what like actual people think. But I don't know, man. I'm frustrated with how hard it is to just have simple conversations. Like, everything is so controversial, even if it's not. Even if it's objectively not controversial, you know, like if you have a character, like I think there's a line in the new Dragon Age the Veilguard where the Kunari character is saying, like, you know what, I don't want to be called she anymore, I'm a they now, or whatever. And it's just, it feels so fucking out of place. Now, I haven't played the game yet. I played the game. It's out of place. It's just somebody on the writing team that is basically, they wish they could say this to their dad, but they're not on speaking terms with their dad, so they decided to write it into their video game instead. Planning to play the game. I want to see how good or bad it really is. After covering it, I feel like I got to get my hands on it, and I got to make up my own mind. That's what I want. Now, I've shared my impressions. I'm not holding back or pulling punches with how I feel about what I'm seeing, but I am willing to play the game and then really know. You know what I'm saying?
I saw this on Twitter that people were criticizing me for playing the game after criticizing the game. And I thought that was really interesting because, so at this point, I'm wrong for not liking the game, and I'm also wrong for trying to inform myself about the game. So the only way that I can be right is if I agree with you. Okay.
But when I see lines of dialogue, and I'm sure you've seen if you follow Dragon Age the Veilguard, I'm sure, because there's been like a million fucking videos on it in the past 24 hours. I'm sure you've seen the clip I'm talking about. And I'm looking at it as a fan of the franchise and as a gamer, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, this fucking does not belong. Like, what is this writing? This is like some weird self-insert shit to me. That's what it looks like. I could be wrong, not having the full context. I'm going to try and go and get it if I can get.
I think that if you look at, for example, like we just looked at earlier, there was like that golem that was in like one of the earlier Dragon Age games. That golem sounds like a dude, and is effectively asexual. So I actually think that if you look at RPGs and fantasy novels and fantasy writing, that it's actually incorporated a lot of like kind of interesting and like fringe social issues in ways that are respectful. But do you want to know why I think that people don't know that like that happens? It's because their media literacy is so low and their capacity for critical thought is so low that the only way that they can perceive a person who has like a a non-conforming like sexuality is if it's immediately spelled out for them and it's defined in plain text because they can't understand metaphors and nuance. Because if you look back and like you look at a lot of old like fantasy shows and fantasy stuff, there's tons of things like that, but it's told in a way that's not patronizing and repeated 3 times. Yeah.
Get through the game, I'm gonna go get it. But just where I'm sitting right now, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this shit does not belong in the game. Why is it here? Like what? Like the reason why. And then of course when I point that out, you know, I'm a bigot.
Well, and this is one thing that I think is also like really kind of weird, is that I've always thought that gaming is actually one of the most multicultural, like racial groups of people ever. Like if you want to see a really, really diverse group of people, go to your local Smash tournament. Go over there. Like you want to see a really diverse group of people, go to your local Street Fighter 6 tournament. You're going to see all kinds of people. Go to your next speedrunning tournament. They act like it's not. So like this entire premise that like gaming is a hotbed for like extremism or bigotry or whatever, it's not really true, and it's never been true. Yeah, there's going to be bad actors everywhere, of course. But if you look at it at a macro level, I actually think that gaming has been probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest way that people are de-radicalized. And what I mean by that is that, you know, we always see people that are radicalized on the internet, and you see people that are gamers on the internet like that, sure. But what you don't see are guys that join a Call of Duty clan with a black guy, and they're raised in the South, and their parents are racist, and then they meet this guy and they're friends, and then this person's no longer a racist. That happens 100 times more often than somebody like being an actual racist on the internet and like learning to be racist from like Call of Duty. And it's again about the optics of an argument. It's about what sounds good, because it doesn't sound good to say that a lot of the people that are saying slurs on the internet aren't actually racist. They're just doing it for shock value. But the truth is that that's actually the reason why they're doing it. These people are in a lot of times not racist. They don't actually care about like homophobia or anything like that. They're just calling you the homophobic F word because that's the word that they use for each other, right? But like they probably have friends that are gay. Maybe they're gay themselves. One of my raid leader's favorite words to use was the homophobic F word. He married a dude. So I think that what happens is that the fixation on optics and the fixation on virtue signaling has created a very, very dark reflection of what gaming actually is. And if you want to see what gaming actually is, go and look at BlizzCon photos of guild meetups. If you want to see what gaming actually is, go to your local Smash Brothers tournament. That's what gaming actually is. Not some weird story that was written about some racist kid on Call of Duty. It's not real. Falls under the current problem of toxic positivity. Yeah, gaming, I think, has actually been probably one of the most, like, I would say, like, multicultural, like, multiracial, multisexual, like, and not multisexual, kind of, right? But, like I remember, like, in 2000, and, like, I guess this is, like, it was 2011, like, I was in my friend's guild, and, like, there was a trans person in the guild, and nobody had a problem with it because they were all friends with this person, and they would make jokes about it occasionally, right? Same as you do with anybody. But, like, for the most part, it's like, now you're having an interaction with a person who's trans, and this person is not a male or a female, they're a rogue. They're a mage. And this person, like, you know this person on a level that transcends their sexuality. And I think that that focus allows people to, and also like the internet in general, allows people to ask questions like, you know, how many of you guys have ever asked a question to a person who's part of a group that like you would not want to ask in real life, right? It's like, since I'm on the internet, I can ask this because you kind of feel safe about it. I think that is so healthy. That is extremely healthy. Why are you gay? Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm one of them, and all these other weird ass fucking comments that I read. The reason why stuff like this has become such a talking point, you know, you saw it around Concord, you saw it around, what was that game, Dustborn. Sure. You see it around Dragon Age the Veilguard, with like social activism and stuff like that being put in the game. A lot of like you know, gay and trans issues and you know, minority issues, or whatever term, right, is put in the game, and it becomes kind of a focus in the game.
Which again, none of these are the actual problem. Bad writing and patronizing is the problem. Trans issues, social issues, gender issues, race issues, none of these are actual problems that people have an issue with in gaming. The only thing that people actually have an issue with is bad writing and patronizing behavior.
The reason why it's such a talking point for people like me, and I think a lot of people, is because more often than not, it seems like when these themes are put into games and explored in games, it comes at the expense of the quality of the game that I'm paying my fucking hard-earned money for. That's the only reason. Like,
I don't think that's true. But what I do think is true is that games that will prioritize using the game to be a soapbox for a social issue, and the way that it's communicated is very heavy-handed and very just on the nose and preachy, I think that those games will have a higher ratio of, because like fundamentally, like if you're trying to use a game to do that, you probably don't care a lot about the game. You don't care about the integrity of the game. You don't care about the integrity of the art. You only want to use this art as a vehicle to talk about your agenda. So the people that on average are going to do that are probably also going to be people that are not going to put as much effort, time, or thought into how to make their stories good or how to make their gameplay good. That's why a lot of these woke games are bad. It's because woke is not making the game bad, but the fact that you want to enforce like kind of these types of like social issues into the game in a heavy-handed way implies that you don't actually care about the product that you're making.
It's only because it seems like there's a direct relation between developers that choose to focus on this and then
and he's saying the same thing, but like all I'm saying is that there's like, he's saying A equals B, I'm saying A equals C, and this B is in the middle. Like his conclusion is accurate, but I'm trying to contextualize it around the reason why I think it's actually happening.
Shitty
hopefully
quality,
that makes sense.
Bad writing, like unintuitive mechanics. It's just like, if you want to explore sexuality and mature themes and, you know, political this and social that, if you want to explore those themes in your game, I don't have a problem with that. If you want to have a gay character, you can have the whole cast fucking gay, bro. I don't give a shit. I will still play the game if it's good. If it's good, all I worry about.
And the best evidence of that, by the way, is like, I mean, obviously you can use Baldur's Gate 3, but like Apex Legends, the game was massive and like it had like crazy diversity.
Is the quality. That's all I care about. And when I see this stuff in games, I wonder to myself, because I've seen it, there's been so many examples back to back to back to back to back for multiple years now. When I see it, I wonder to myself, did you focus on this so much that you neglected the things that really matter about making the game good? And when you
yes, that's the problem. And also another problem is that, so this is a meta level issue. It's basically, so we've talked a lot about like DEI funds and like BlackRock giving money to people for DEI. I think that in a lot of ways, this is kind of a, you know, kind of like a boogeyman. But at the same time, I think there's an element of it that's true. And I think that games that cannot earn money based off of the merit of the gameplay or the quality of the game instead try to find merit through the representation in the game or the effective DEI in the game. So what that does is it creates a confirmation bias that video games that are bad are getting funding that are DEI, because those video games that are getting funding for DEI would not have been able to get funding any other way. Do you see kind of how that happens? It's like effectively like a selection bias.
You put these themes, these mature themes, they're complex themes. These are complex topics, and you're putting them in your game. If you're going to do that, it has to be done with a certain degree of like reverence for the topic, respect for the topic that you're exploring, a certain amount of
emotional maturity.
Talent.
I think
you have to have real talent to write about these themes and insert these themes into your game and do it well and do it in a respectful way that doesn't like negatively affect the game. And that like one of the biggest issues that I have about it is that it feels like the people that insert this into the game, they assume we're fucking stupid, and they feel like when they write these characters and when they put this in games and trailers and stuff,
Dragon Age is probably the game, as I said, the way that I know the Dragon Age devs think that you're stupid is the fact that I can figure out the puzzles. There's like a square block and a square hole, and one person is like, Rook, I believe you have to put the square block in the square hole. And then the other companion is like, it seems interesting that the block over there is in the same shape as the hole in this. And then there's the quest objective, put the square block in the square hole. And then there's an indicator on your map and it says square block. And then as soon as you click it, then there's an indicator on the square hole, and then you put it in the square hole. And then it finally happens and it's like, Rook, you're so smart. Oh my God, this is why you're our leader. Let's go. It's so sad.
have to get up on a soapbox and like talk down to you like trans people should be treated with respect.
Yeah.
Like they have to fucking scream it in your face because you're too stupid to understand it otherwise. It's not subtle at all. They make no attempt a lot of times to actually...
They don't respect the intelligence of the person who's playing the game. And I think it's represented in the way that the stories are told. And I think that it's also represented in the way that they represent representation. It's a weird way to say it, but the way that they express representation.
Fitted into the game.
This guy's so based. Yeah, I think he is.
In a way that
he's been right about everything.
Is cohesive and it's like good. Like it's like genuinely good. Like Parvati. You look at her in The Outer Worlds.
I didn't play that.
And she was done so well. I think she was an asexual character. She's like one of your party members, and she develops kind of a crush on another girl or whatever, and you're trying to wingman for her. You're giving her advice on how to talk to this other girl that she has a crush on, and you're giving her advice on like how to deal with like her, being asexual and stuff. And it's just written so well, and she's such a likable character, and she brings more to the table than just like her sexual identity. She's a fleshed out character that's likable and you're rooting for her. And when the romance works,
that's also another big issue, is that I think in a lot of cases they take these characters that have like a kind of protected identity, like for example being trans or non-binary, and they make these characters be effectively good at everything and smarter than everyone, and they create like these Mary Sue versions of the character because they don't want to have a character that is part of like one of these protected groups that ends up looking bad or doing something that's seen as bad. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, they're like cardboard characters. Yeah, and I think that again goes into what I was saying before. It's not about the character, it's about the way it's written. They're so annoying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, flawless and bland.
Player, I was like, hell yeah. So it's like, I don't mind any of
like there's never going to be a discussion that's had between different NPCs in the game where this character is wrong.
This stuff like DEI and, the main character's black or gay or I don't give a shit, or a woman. I don't care. I was upset about Ghost of Yotai, and then I had to deal with some backlash over that. But it was only because I wasn't ready to say goodbye to Jen. I was like, ah, fuck, I'm gonna, like, fuck, you know, like,
Yeah, like, I remember I like playing guy characters in games, and like I'm a guy, I can relate better to guys. I want to play a guy character. If I can, I'll still probably play the game, but I just wish I could play as a guy. And like if there's a girl that says, yeah, imagine how I felt about Wukong, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I get it. Sure.
It just hit me out of nowhere. I thought there was going to be another like story with Jin Sakai, and then we got a new character. It didn't matter that the new character was a woman. It just wasn't Jin, and I was like, oh fuck, like I wasn't ready to say goodbye. I loved Ghost of Tsushima so much. Like I have such a genuine like love for that game. I just think they did so many things so well in it, and the story was brilliant. And it's like, fuck, you know, but I'm fine with the new game and I'm excited to play it. But then immediately, the conversation is no longer about how good Ghost of Tsushima was. The conversation is not about how likable and well-written Jin Sakai was, or, you know, curiosities about what this new story is going to be and who this new character is. I'm not seeing any of like this genuine, like really good, interesting conversation that I can interact with on social media.
Yeah, there's never going to be that.
It's just immediately like bigotry, sexism, gamer chuds, and incels mad that they're not getting another male protagonist. It's just the same grifting bullshit. And I'm just so fucking tired of it. And it
is exhausting. It is so fucking exhausting to see stuff like this happen. And I think that really the reason why is because arguing about like the gender of a character is a lot more accessible to an average person than arguing about like, let's say whether the game was good or not, or like whether this story will be more interesting or not. It's kind of what I was saying before about how like all conversations devolve into the lowest common denominator. I think this is a good example of it right now.
Becomes so difficult for me because the fucking algorithms reward it so much. Like I know if I went like harder, if I leaned into it more with like titles and thumbnails, and I know that if I went if I chose like a harder angle from the left or a harder angle from the right when I discuss these topics, I will be rewarded with.
This is also really true. And like the phrase for this that a lot of people use that I think is extremely accurate is audience capture. And I think what happens is that some people play into a certain like viewpoint a lot. And then in playing into that viewpoint, they end up attracting an audience of people that is radicalized in the direction of that viewpoint. And then they feel like they can't express viewpoints outside of that. And like for me, for example, like I've had that happen a lot where I've kind of like, because I talk a lot about this stuff and I'm generally pretty critical of it. So when I talk about like a social issue, like let's say abortion or whatever, like you, well, I feel like I basically do the bull in the china shop like act. Like I have no problem making people really mad because I don't share some viewpoint for like a story, or like I don't share some viewpoint about something being DEI. Like a good example is that when the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff came out, like obviously like, yeah, Sweet Baby's stupid. Like the people that are running it are stupid. Yeah, 100%. But like I didn't really spend a lot of time harping about how bad this company was because I thought they were being used as a scapegoat. And a lot of people got mad at me for that because they said, oh, you're just running defense for them. It's like actually the opposite. 9-month abortion was a crazy take that many here do not agree with. I don't know if you were joking or real about it. Oh, I was real about it. I don't want to get into like a conversation about like social stuff, but what I'm saying is that like my viewpoints on things are not one-dimensional, right? And I think that what happens is that a lot of, and like I'm extremely lucky in a lot of ways that I have so many people that watch me and so many people that are interested in like looking at my content that it literally doesn't matter what I say or what I do because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to agree with it, right? Yeah, no, a terrible take. No, that's fine. People want to disagree with it. Maybe we can talk about it after the video. But what I'm really trying to get at here is that a lot of people would be afraid to say what I say because they're worried about like alienating that group of people that they feel like is their core audience. And that is an extremely dangerous place to be in because now you are no longer in control. The audience is in control.
like views and subs, and I want that.
Yeah,
I want that. I've been making content for 4 years. I'm only at 8,000 subs. Like I on my streaming channel. Oh, this is a new channel that I just started, so it's it's still a baby channel at like 500 subs.
Yeah,
but I would like growth. I would like views. I would just like the opportunity for my video to be seen, and then people can reject it or accept it, like it, dislike it. I just want to be out there and a part of the conversation, but I don't want to have to do that to get there. But these algorithms reward it, and I feel
they
like
do, because the more angry and upset you are, I think that the more people are going to like tune in and watch. But I actually don't think that's entirely true. And I think that there is a degree of fatigue that people are being afflicted by now, where things have become so partisan, so emotional, and so extreme that people want to like, and this has been, you guys might have noticed me doing this, right? And, you guys can tell me, like, do you think that this has been, like, have I succeeded in this so far? I have really tried to dial down extreme rhetoric. I have tried to dial down like emotional arguments, like people like getting really mad about this stuff, having like one-dimensional viewpoints, and I've really tried to talk about things in a way that's more authentic and in a way that's more respectful. I've actually genuinely, like, whenever I put out that apology video and everything, it wasn't about like me saying something that was like politically incorrect or like wrong, really. It was about the entire content of my channel becoming one-dimensional and becoming mean-spirited and I think bad. Like, and that was just simply one manifestation of it. And so what I've tried to do and come back from is I've tried to focus a lot more on making content that's like more productive, more funny, more uplifting, more enjoyable to watch at the end of the day, right? And that's what matters a lot. And so good on you, right? Path change time. Well, it's just like a little bit of a like, okay, you're going this way. All right, let's go this way instead, right? Like change things a little bit. That way you don't end up, fucking 5 miles down the road in a completely different country, So yeah, do you think that feeling lighter now with the changes? Yeah, I feel like the stream has done really well. And also, like, I mean, like I hit 3 million subscribers recently. Like, I'm pretty sure like a lot of the videos are getting over 1 million views. Like, it's working. It seems like it's working really well. So yeah, I'm going to keep doing it.
Honestly, to a degree, we reward it. And I do think that there's a certain amount of like self-reflection we have to do. This grifting has to fucking go. Like I don't know if it's even possible to get rid of it, but we have to stop rewarding grifting so much, giving grifters so much fucking attention.
I think what we need to do is we need to talk about actual issues and less about people. The big problem that I think happens is that all of the conversations that happen online are about a person and not about an idea. So, like, I think a good example of this is like Mark Kern. So Mark Kern, a lot of people really like him and a lot of people really hate him. And whenever he posts something and people reference it or talk about what he says, there's all of this noise about like the fact that Mark Kern said this. It's not about whether it was accurate or not. It's about who's saying it. And I think that he sucks. Well, no, all I'm saying is that you should look at what's being said, not who's saying it. And I think that this again goes back to like what I was saying about how critical thinking is dead. Because it's a lot easier to say bad person bad than bad idea bad. He scammed people with his game. Well, I'm not defending or attacking Mark Kern. It has nothing to do with Mark Kern. That's the point, right? Is like people are incapable of separating an idea from the messenger. And I think that's the fundamental issue. And that's why Discourse has gotten so bad.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I have seen somebody put out an inflammatory video, just exploiting a topic like the female protagonist with Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotai, or, the stuff with Concord. Like, you can tell. I don't know how easily it is. I don't know how easy it is for other people to tell, but when I look at it, I can tell who's trying to have a genuine conversation about what's going on with the game, why this works, why this doesn't, like, the mistakes that were made, maybe how it could be rectified. I can tell the difference between that and somebody that's, you know, just going up there and making their video to either shit on it blindly and in an incendiary way, just lobbing insults at people that like the game, lobbing insults.
Oh, this happens a lot with me. Like, a lot of people that are insulting me and like getting mad at me for something, like I'll see this on Reddit comments. I will see like it's basically a screenshot of a thumbnail of a video that I did, and there's no red bar at the bottom of the video. Nobody watched the video. All of the conversation, it's like a 37-minute video. Everybody is talking about how, like, either I'm right about everything or wrong about everything. But nobody even watched it. It's crazy.
Directly at the director, personal insults at the writer, naming them and shit like this. It's like you're only making it worse, and you're doing it intentionally for fucking revenue, for ad revenue and growth. And you know, maybe I just don't understand the game. You know, maybe I'm just not built for this or whatever the fuck, but I am so sick of it. And I just feel like we've got to stop rewarding those.
I think that doing stuff for money isn't a bad thing fundamentally. And I don't really want to get in, like, I don't really like the soapbox. I'm not saying he's doing this, but I don't like the soapbox that some other people get on, and they talk about how bad it is to do things for money. I think it's fine if you want to do something for money, but what you're doing needs to be accurate, and it needs to be to a certain degree like authentic in order for people to respect it.
Motherfuckers, we've got to stop. Like, when we see that behavior, we have to start rejecting grifters and start clicking on videos and supporting creators that are at least trying to have a real fucking conversation.
Exactly.
And I do think that a lot of people feel the same way I do. And a lot of people are starting to express.
I think that's the reason why a lot of my videos are popular. Like, this is like, I don't want to self-glaze a lot, but I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people like watching my videos is because I talk about this stuff without it being completely one-dimensional.
These same sentiments. So I just wanted to make this video and tell you how I've been feeling and what I've been going through. And I'm sorry that it's like I'm sorry that I've got like this crazy crackhead energy, and I'm sorry that I'm like bouncing all over the place and rambling. I didn't write down any bullet points or anything. I just felt like I had this elephant sitting on my shoulder just weighing me down, man, and it's stressing me out. And all I want to do is just talk about games, you know, that I love. And the only reason I give attention to negative things, the only reason I give attention...
You're always going to have, like, in any platform, in any place where a person can stand to make money, you will always have disingenuous behavior or some form of scamming. Whether it's clickbaiting, whether it's people selling products that don't actually do what they're advertised to do, whether it's like OnlyFans bot girls, like that's just because people just want to make money, right? And it's important to know how to like kind of filter that out.
To negative things like Concord or fucking
BetterHelp, exactly.
Dragon Age the Veil Guard, and I'm not perfect. I know that there's definitely been videos I've made where I leaned into grifting, and then I would watch my video back later. I'd revisit it, or I'd read the comments, and I would think to myself, like, damn, I wish I would have worded that differently. Like, I feel like I hurt my own video smart. By going so hard on that one particular topic. Or
I do that too. Like, and I've tried to, like, because really, you know, hindsight is always 20/20. But what's really important is being able to catch yourself when you're doing it, and then stop yourself from doing it, and stop yourself from putting yourself in that position in the first place. Because that's the real issue. What does grifting mean? Basically, what a lot of people refer to it as is people that are just putting out content for money, and they're doing it in a cynical way that is not what they actually believe. They're just doing it to make as much money as possible. That's basically what it's referred to as.
A little bit more nuance or whatever. Like, there's definitely things that I need to do as a creator to improve, and I'm working on that, right? But there's just a difference between creators that are going through that process and trying to grow and get better, and creators that are just out here pouring gas on fire because it makes them money, and I'm fucking sick of it.
Well, I mean, we've always have tabloids, right? I mean, there's always going to be tabloids. It's not really a bad thing. It's just that you shouldn't use these as a primary source.
The reason I even give any attention to like the negative stuff is because it's genuinely affecting our products. It's affecting IPs that we love. It's affecting the quality of our games. So it does have to be called out. It should be discussed. I'm not trying to discourage that, but I just think there's a line, you know, and maybe it's like a razor's edge, you know, maybe it's really hard to walk that line. I think for me, it has been.
Everybody is. It is actually very hard to walk the line because people, when they hear something they disagree with, will assume that you're on the other side of their line. That's the reason why.
But we just got to do better, and we got to reward people that do better, and we got to stop rewarding people that are making no effort to have a nuanced conversation about this stuff because they're winning, and I think that we're all losing.
Yeah.
And it sucks. But if you enjoyed this conversation, I hope you'll leave a comment. I hope that you'll consider subscribing. I stream on Rex Sterling Live on YouTube and Rex Sterling on Twitch, and I post my videos here on Rex Sterling TV. I hope I'll see you again. Thank you for listening.
That was a really good video. I'm gonna be honest.
I'm sitting down.
I really didn't expect to sit through and watch the entire thing. Usually it's kind of like a longer topic. Thank you for watching. Oh, he's in chat. There he is. Rex Sterling in chat. Thank you, man. Yeah, I think this is great. You guys only got well, now he has 659. He had like 500 and something subscribers. I'll link the video, guys. Give him a like, give him a sub if you like the video. I think this is extremely fucking accurate. Pretty much everything this guy was saying was on point. They pushed too far and enough is enough. Yeah. Well, and I think this is the other issue is that when you feel like you're in a circus, the only way to behave is like a clown. And so people basically feel like they've been pushed a lot and they've been pushed in a certain direction. So what they do is that they have an equal and opposite overreaction. So like in the same way that there's an overreaction for, what do you call it? In the same way that there's an overreaction for, let's say, you know, like adding in like trans like ideology into a game, there's like an overreaction to that overreaction. And I think that's kind of how it happens, where it's like a mutual escalation, I guess.